Power Drift. Like Space Harrier before it, Power Drift is awesome. Power Drift was released in the arcades in 1988 and ported to the Saturn 10 years later in 1998 and was created by Sega arcade mastermind Yu Suzuki. Developed using the same superscalar technology that was popularized by Space Harrier and Outrun, Power Drift is a circuit racer that has you racing through 30 unique tracks filled with twists, turns, jumps, hills, and tunnels. There's 12 playable characters to choose from, both male and female. But if you're like me, you gotta play as a female. Mainly because all the characters share the same male voice sample as they shout fighting words at each other. Also, I find it kinda hilarious when the game refers to your girl character as a sharp dude or a handsome boy. The characters don't really have any special attributes, and selecting them is weird too, but whatever. As you start the game, there are 5 circuits to choose from that include 5 tracks each, with a secret 6th track if you get first place overall on the other tracks. This is a task easier said than done, however. This game is straight up brutal. The AI is relentless, the tracks are mind-bendingly challenging, and crashing once can easily ruin a race. The difficulty alone may be enough to turn off a lot of people at first, but sticking with the game and learning its mechanics and tracks make for a very rewarding gameplay experience. Speaking of mechanics, there's the controls. Power Drift controls very much like Outrun, with acceleration, brake, and a high and low shifter. A nice little feature is that you can turn off the shifting in the options menu and go straight up automatic if you want. Despite the game's namesake, there isn't any real drifting mechanics in the game, with it merely being an aesthetic thing for your car sprites, which look pretty rad by the way. Once you get used to the controls, you'll quickly learn that that won't be enough to get good at this game. Track memorization is unbelievably crucial to Power Drift. The first 3 tracks of a circuit are easy to get the hang of, but the last 2 are incredibly challenging. You're going to see that continue screen a lot when you start out. It is an arcade game after all. I'll admit that I got pretty frustrated with the later tracks in the game. It's as if you need lightning fast reflexes to get through some of those hairpin turns. I may have a great and perfect lead at one point, but then one crash and I'm so far behind the pack that there's no way I can recover my lead. I never felt fed up with Power Drift though. All my losses made me want to learn the game better. It felt like I went into a zen-like state where I simply couldn't stop playing the game, no matter how difficult it became. Power Drift has that exact same addictive quality that Sega's arcade racing hits had. It's difficult and challenging like a good arcade game, but it's rewarding and fun, like a great arcade game. Superscalar games, like Space Harrier and even Gale Racer, give off the illusion of being in a 3D world by having hundreds and hundreds of layered sprites come at you very quickly, to give you a real sense of depth in what is otherwise a 2D game. Power Drift though takes it to a level that I've never seen before with a superscalar game. While a game like Outrun procedurally renders each layered sprite, the creators of Power Drift instead went and rendered all the sprites at once to create a 3D-like environment in a 2D world. The programmers must have been on something at the time to think of something like this. It's mind-blowingly ludicrous and I absolutely love it. It totally works. A 3D world in a 2D game. Groundbreaking. It also helps that the tracks are designed around this look. They're short, sweet, technical, and look outstanding. There's so much stuff populating the tracks, from buildings, billboards, trees, and other different terrain. The multi-level tracks are just as impressive, with massive hills, bridges, and overlapping tracks to really liven things up. And the sense of speed is incredible. Power Drift is a freakishly fast game, with speed unlike any other superscalar game I've ever seen. The soundtrack is also something of note. Each circuit's distinct song matches the game's fast-paced nature perfectly. Each song is catchy, memorable, and just goddamn awesome. Power Drift is one of the best arcade racing games ever made. Its crazy speed, variety of tracks, tight controls, and mind-blowingly cool presentation make this a game that racing enthusiasts should not pass up. The Sega Ages port of Power Drift isn't exactly the cheapest thing to come by, with prices of $50 or more, but it won't break the bank either like other Sega Saturn gems. There's also a Sega Dreamcast port on the Yu Suzuki GameWorks Volume 1. The only downside is that these arcade ports were only released in Japan, but if that's not a hindrance for you, then by all means get Power Drift. 25 years after its initial arcade release, it's a game that continues to be forgotten in the minds of several classic gamers. Power Drift is a racer that deserves your attention.